timed that well because YouTube is a bit weird. But anyhow, welcome to my live stream, boys, fellas. Another day, another live stream. I hope you're all doing well. As you can see by the title, this one's a slightly different live stream than others, maybe. I've titled it It's Deeper Than Day Game. So I might or I will get a bit deeper onto this live stream topic since I was inspired to get a bit deeper and a bit more philosophical and talk about the sort of the deeper reasons as to why I think cold approach is a really valuable skill set. So hopefully you guys will find it interesting. Um, and yeah, I mean, before I get into it, just a quick introduction. So yeah, my name's Ian, 28 years old, from the UK. Yeah, used to be an economic consultant, used to be a data analyst, moving into tech sales soon. Yeah, I had a really bad dating life, and then I found Cold Approach, and Cold Approach, yeah, completely transformed my dating life. It improved my confidence, and I found it at a time when I didn't really have any other alternatives, and it just gave me a new way of getting dates, meeting women who I was attracted to, and eventually I got good enough to find success after trying it out solo by myself and then getting coaching by somebody really reputable and really good at the skill set called Ephraim. And then, yeah, eventually things improved, and here I am today speaking as somebody who's, got, the options I want. I've had a good number of romantic experiences, and I decided to make a channel to document my journey and to also help guys out who might be where I used to be or might be further ahead in the process, and just want someone who understands the ups and the downs of the journey, which are inevitable. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the topic, right into it. I think I put the chat off for this one because I just want to spit my thoughts. I haven't actually prepared any notes for this stream because I just wanted to come off the cuff, straight from the heart, since this is one of the more deeper topics. But yeah, like I said, the title, it's deeper than day game. Now, like most guys or all guys, I obviously got into cold approach because my dating life was bad. I didn't have any options, and dating apps weren't working for me, and nor were nightclubs. I'm an introverted guy, so the idea of going out to bars never appealed to me, and I didn't really see any value in trying to, seduce somebody from my friendship group or try to hit on one of my coworkers. It just didn't feel like those were, you know, valid ways to get the kind of options I wanted, because it just felt limited and it felt forced, and it just didn't feel like the best way. So thankfully, when I came across Cold Approach, I thought, oh, okay, this could be a really, great opportunity and a really effective way to transform my dating life. And of course, the main objective was to get dates, get laid, maybe get a girlfriend if I wanted one, or just have lots of experiences. And so that was the main objective, right? I didn't see beyond that, yeah, right? Like my goal was just, look, I'm a horny 28-year-old guy who, has had a relationship in the past, but wasn't the best relationship, has had a few hookups here and there, but they weren't the best, to be honest. Not the most that I'll be proud of, or nothing I'd be really proud of. And so, yeah, you find yourself in that position and you just think to yourself, this seems to be the best way to get what I want. So that's the main objective, right? That was what drove me to try. And so, like you guys, I watched content, I was watching lots of self-improvement content, a lot of which was, geared towards going to the gym and improving your mental health and reading books, becoming more knowledgeable, making more money. And part of it was also dating, right? And of course, every single creator had different perspectives on how to go about dating. But I eventually found a channel called Social Animal by Ruben. And he had this subscriber challenge where he would push his subscribers to go in and approach, right? Go in and express their desires. And a lot of the time it was, they wanted to talk to an attractive girl that they liked. So yeah, he would push them into doing that. And that inspired me to get out there and to try it myself, which is exactly what I did. So uh, I went out and did my first approach. And the feeling I got after that approach was pretty indescribable. I mean, it was really intense. It kind of felt as if I had taken a bag of mushrooms, 10 times the recommended dose, and all of a sudden, my senses were completely heightened. Everything felt brighter, everything felt more vibrant, um, and I just felt on top of the world. And that was right after my first approach, right? And that feeling was very foreign to me. I hadn't felt that in a very long time. And when I really think about it now, the last time I felt such a intense, sort of out of body, vibrant energy as I did that day, the last time I felt that was probably when I'd performed in front of my school for the first time, when I was playing the drums, or when I used to be a part of this dance group and we would perform at talent shows in the school. And the nervousness and the fear would kind of get a hold of me, and then eventually it was go time and you would perform, right? Or maybe the butterflies you feel before you play like a football game. So I used to play sports when I was younger, and sometimes if it was a big game or there was a bit of a crowd that was watching us play, then you'd feel nervous. But then after the game, or after you score a goal, you'd feel like really amazing, right? And so it was a similar feeling to that, right? I think that was the last time I probably felt those, like that heightened aliveness, right? I think honestly, the best way to describe that feeling after that first approach was I felt alive, like properly alive, right? All my senses heightened. Everything is in a weird way like moving a million miles an hour, but also moving really slowly. But like it's really just in your face. Like everything just feels a lot more sensitive, and but all of this is in a positive way, right? And it's funny because right before the approach, I was in my head thinking, oh my god, like what's she gonna think? What are people gonna think? I'm so scared. How do I get in there? How do I not fuck this up? All these fears running through my head, feeling paralyzed, getting into that fight or flight moment. And then I overcame that sort of barrier of fear and went ahead and eventually did the approach and had a great conversation. And luckily for me, my first approach went well. I got her number, we spoke on text. I never met her again, but that's beside the point, right? After that approach, I remember I was in Covent Garden and I just felt amazing. It was a nice sunny September day, and yeah, I just felt amazing. And that high, that emotional high, it just lasted for a really long time. It lasted pretty much throughout the day. I mean, I remember going back on the train, and I was sat in the train, and I was sat next to this couple, right? This lady and her husband, and they had just, I think, come from a rugby match, because I live in an area that's close to a place called Twickenham, and Twickenham is a town, or let's say district, that is known to have a rugby stadium, and so they host these big rugby games. And so they just come back from watching the rugby, and I was in a very like elevated, heightened God flow level frequency. So even though like I don't normally talk to people on the train right? I don't normally interact with strangers. I was on such a high that I could I think I just asked her like, oh, like where have you been? And then she just told me she'd been to the rugby, and then now we literally had an entire conversation for the rest of the train journey back to my hometown, and we were talking about where I live because she's also from there, and then she just gave me like this whole back history. But the point is, like, the conversational material doesn't really matter. The point is, I almost felt like I'd stepped into a new identity, right? Like I said, for the first time, I felt really, really, really alive and confident and carefree. Carefree. I felt carefree. I felt like nothing mattered. Nobody's opinion mattered. I didn't care about what other people thought. And you have to understand that at that time, you know, I was somebody who was a chronic overthinker, right? Even though I wasn't, let's say, I would never call myself somebody who had severe anxiety or severe overthinking tendencies or, those sort of issues. It's not, I was still like functioning, but I was definitely somebody who liked to just keep their head below the parapet, not cause too much trouble, and be low key, right? Even if I wanted to say something, or even if I wanted to stand up for myself, or even if I wanted to, you know, put myself out there was always that resistance, right? Because of that fear of being seen. And I used to have a pretty high fear of being seen, especially being seen in a vulnerable place, right? So, I used to be someone who would overthink everything, right? So I wanted to say the right thing, not make mistakes. Even the idea of stuttering in front of a stranger or a cute girl or whoever it is, right? Like that would be fairly daunting because I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to look like somebody who was incompetent or stupid. And so I kind of avoided any sort of spotlight because the moment that somebody could see that, oh, this guy just fucked up, then I felt like less than, or I'd feel really bad. And so the idea of doing what I did, right, doing that first cold approach was such a complete 360 from who I was before I did that approach. Which is why in that moment it felt as if I'd literally completely transformed who I was. And that sounds crazy to say or to hear, and it might even come across as a little bit exaggerated. But the truth is, in that moment, like taking that step and getting over that fear, which was so intense, like once I did that, then all of a sudden, so it's almost as if my past self didn't really have any relevance anymore, right? It's as if I just stepped into new shoes, into a new identity. And so when I got back home that day, I was so giddy. I was so happy. Obviously, I was mainly happy because I got a number, and all of a sudden, there's potential pussy on the table. Not to be crude, but potentially a date or potentially a future girlfriend. And I really liked her actually. Like we had a good vibe, although we didn't see each other, like I said. But I was happy, but there was something very special about that experience that it really like boggled my mind, right? Because I guess in a weird way, even though the objective was to get a number or get a date, I feel like I got something else. I got like a bonus prize, right? I went in for a particular prize and then I ended up coming out the other end with a bonus. And that bonus was just this newfound sense of confidence, right? This newfound sense of being carefree, of not caring about other people's opinions. This new ability to just express myself and get over my fear. Because I think as guys, you know, I think one of the best ways that we can build character is to like charge forward despite fear. Because fear is, I've come to realize, especially through Code Approach, that fear is just a necessary part of life and you can't avoid it. It's like, I don't think there's this place we're trying to get to where we're fearless, because I don't think fear completely evaporates itself, right? And sure, once you get really good at a certain skill, and you become almost masterful at that skill, then the fear of, let's say, messing up or being incompetent completely, let's say, basically dies, right? Like, you don't fear not being good enough because you've already elevated in terms of skill set. So, of course, fear can, decrease over time, and because you become more confident, more competent, more capable. But in general, there's always going to be something that we're afraid of, right? And we're afraid to go after it for a multitude of reasons, right? Whether it's the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, the fear of responsibility, right? The fear of being ostracized, the fear of, those closest to you not agreeing with you. Whatever the fear is, um, there's a it's a very difficult force to get over. And I think as guys, as men, it's important for us to recognize those fears in our lives and to really to do what we can to face them head on. Yeah, to face them head on and to just to go right through it, because like I said, it exists. There's no taking it away. That's just an integral part of life. So instead of wishing that the fear wasn't there or being confused as to why the fear is there, we just go straight forward regardless. And what you come to realize is, or what I came to realize is that the more I did that, and then the more I survived, the more I realized that I was capable. And I think the reason I say that this goes deeper than day game, or this goes deeper than just getting laid, is because the reality is that I didn't get laid for a fairly long time before when I started Cold Approach, right? It took me about, to be fair, it took me about 60 approaches to get my first date, which happened, let's say, 4 months after I started Cold Approach. So, and then in terms of getting laid, that happened in July last year, right? That was the first time I, let's say, had my first happy ending. Um, and so, if you look at that, let's say, over that timeline, right, starting in September 2024, and then first having your first, like, happy ending in July 2025, that's almost a year, right? That's almost a year before I got the cookie, yeah, before I got the prize. And so any like rational person would look at that and go, is it really worth all that hard work? Is it really worth all that effort? Is it really worth all that rejection? And if you're only looking at it from the perspective of, I'm just doing this to get laid, or I'm just doing this to get dates, then maybe you're right. Maybe it isn't worth it, right? Is it worth getting battered and getting your ego battered constantly if the end goal is just to get laid? Because if you really think about it, I mean, yeah, you get to the, let's say, the peak, right? You get to the mountain peak, you have the happy ending. She goes in her Uber home, and you feel great. It's a great experience. I'm not here to say that getting laid is a bad goal. Look, let's not tiptoe around this issue as if we're the only ones who want to get laid. It's a innate male biological drive. So every guy wants to get laid. Every guy has a sex drive, or most guys have a sex drive. And yes, we might want it at different cadences. We might want it at different frequency. But the point is, we wake up, we're horny, we want girls. It's as simple as that. It's a part of creation. It's a part of life. It's the reason that I'm here speaking, because it happened before me and it happened generations before them. So this is a normal part of life. But that being said, does it make sense to have to go through all that struggle, let's say, right? All that growth just for that? I mean, I would argue maybe not, right? That, like, and when I look back at my journey, it wasn't necessarily the getting laid part that kept me going. That is, to be fair, that was a big driver. And one of the reasons why I got frustrated, let's say halfway through my journey, right before I reached out for coaching and support, was because that was the goal, right? And so if the goal was to make progress and get to a point where I could actually, have, fun, romantic experiences, then the fact that I wasn't really getting closer to that point and I seemed to plateau at a certain level was frustrating. And that was totally understandable. But in those moments, I had to always remind myself that this entire process, this entire journey, from my perspective, right, it wasn't necessarily just about the dates or getting laid, because even though I wasn't getting the cookie, I could already see the changes in who I was. I could see and feel the difference in who I was when I woke up, who I was when I walked outside, who I was when I spoke my opinion, who I was when I interacted with different people, colleagues, friends, family. I was standing up for myself way more. I wasn't afraid to just say it as it is, right? I was a lot more commanding with my voice, or just even just not tiptoeing around certain issues, right? Like being more comfortable expressing my desires. And I just noticed that shift day after day, approach after approach, week after week. And when I realized that shift, I knew in that moment this goes way deeper than just getting girls, man, and getting laid. And that's not just, and the reality is, you know, a lot of people might not relate to this, which is fine, because there's lots of guys out there who've always had success with dating, right? They've always been able to get girls when they were younger, and kudos to them, right? So for them, that's just been a normal part of their life that's always been sorted. And there might even be guys who are similar to me, and maybe they don't see it this deeply, right? But I think that the distinguishing factor between, let's say, my journey of becoming somebody who gets girls, having been somebody who couldn't get any girls, isn't the fact that I can get girls and couldn't get girls before. It's not that simple. I think the difference, or the main, um, let's say, the main aspect to focus on is how I got the girls, right? How did I bridge that gap? Because you can imagine a situation where I, instead of finding cold approach, I just maximized my Hinge profile and found a way to crack the algorithm, right? And and then let's say on top of that, I went to the gym, put on a bit more muscle. Let's say I put on 10 pounds of muscle, right? Not a crazy amount, but enough to look visibly different, right? Because I'm a skinny guy. So let's say I gained a bit of muscle and I somehow cracked the Hinge algorithm by signing up for one of those dating app maximizer programs. If that is what got me, if let's say I took that route and that's what got me from point A to point B, which is point A being no action, no results, to dates, getting laid, getting a girlfriend, etc. I don't think that route would have resulted in the way I feel right now, right? That route wouldn't have given me the confidence that I feel right now, the zero fucks given attitude that I have right now, right? It wouldn't have given me the ability to disregard the opinions of other people, um, in moments where I want to express my desires, right? Like that route wouldn't have resulted in significant character development, which is what I'm trying to get at here, right? That's what I'm trying to um, communicate by saying that this is deeper than day game, right? It's about an internal change in who you are and how you view the world and how you view yourself in the world. And cold approach to me, especially daytime cold approach, is that medium. It's the ship that takes us, it's like a voyage, right? And it's what gets us from that sort of, let's say, stranded island, desolate, into, across the shores into paradise, right? And that's why I think cold approach is such a great tool for self-development for the right people, right? It's for the right person who has the right mindset, who um, maybe to some degree you have to be a little bit fucked up to stick on this kind of path, because it isn't easy. At some point it does get fun, and you enjoy it more because you get good at it, and the rejections don't really hurt anymore because you've been desensitized, which again is another great character trait. I mean, imagine being somebody who is desensitized to rejection. I mean, rejection is a fixed part of life. So if you're desensitized to it, then what does that mean? I mean, that basically opens up the entire world, right? That means that you can just go after what you want, right? There's nothing holding you back, because like I've said in different streams, your ego takes a hit. Your ego takes a hit, and by taking that ego hit or having that ego death experience multiple times, you come out the other end alive and thriving, right? You come out alive and all of a sudden the world is your oyster and nothing can stop you, because you haven't attached so much of your identity or your self-worth to to appearing a certain way or maintaining a certain image in front of strangers, friends, colleagues, whoever it is. And in a modern world where people are so concerned about how other people feel about them, in a world where we're always comparing ourselves to these social media ideal images, right? Like in a world like that, if you become the kind of person who just doesn't care about that or doesn't care about what people on the internet think about you, and you just go after what you want purely because you want it, well, like, to me, tell me, brother, like, that's pure freedom, that's liberation. There is nothing more liberating than that. And as somebody who used to feel somewhat trapped or so afraid of just being themselves and expressing themselves and putting themselves out there and being seen, and then becoming somebody who's the complete opposite with that. I mean, bloody hell, I'm starting a fucking channel. I'm on YouTube. Like, the idea of me starting a channel like this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, would have been completely ludicrous, right? And so the reason I'm doing it is one of the reasons I'm doing it, right? Not the main reason, let's say. Although, to be fair, I would actually argue it's the main reason. Um, is because I truly believe in the power of the process. I believe in the power of the process. Um, and if it can work for me, then it can probably work for other people, right? So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it goes deeper than day game, is because it's a transformative tool that will elevate your personal development in so many ways that it will just set you up really nicely for the rest of your life. Um, which is so funny because no, I don't think anybody really expects that to be the case when they get into it, and that's why it's such a great, fun journey, especially if you go on the journey with other people who you resonate with and people you find cool. Because they like back in the day. Just one second, actually, let me take a bit of a drink. Back in the day, in the pickup days, right, when I don't know what's his name, Mystery and Neil Strauss and these other pickup guys, they were teaching lines, routines, all these different psychological mechanisms or scripts to get the girl to undress and to get her in bed and to do all this performative nonsense. And even though it worked to a degree, because if it didn't work, then it wouldn't have been as popular as it became. Um, Back then, I don't think the focus was anywhere near related to self development. That it was purely just to get lays. It was purely for notch counts. And thankfully, like, I completely avoided that space. I found Cold Approach through Christian, and then eventually through Ephraim. And these are guys that were giving a completely different take on what this process looks like and how it's supposed to be embarked on, and what it can do for you as a man, right? Like, we're talking about self-development here, right? And everybody there's so many different avenues online preaching self-development, preaching self-improvement, meditate, journal, read books, go to the gym. And not to say that these methods don't work, because I've dabbled in all of them. I certainly took my time. Sorry, I'm getting a bit gassy now. I certainly took my time to read. I still love reading now. I certainly took time to journal, to express my thoughts, to, you know, um, let's say, improve my cognitive health, mental health. I'm a fairly spiritual guy in the sense that I love to read, spiritual books. I like to get wisdom from, the Bible, different scriptures. I'm really interested into philosophy. So, the idea of improving or increasing my level of wisdom is is great, and I think it's valuable, and I think anybody should do it in the way that they see fit. Same goes for fitness, health. Investing in your health is important. I mean, your body is your temple. Like, your body's important, so it's important to take care of these things, right? So, all of these activities or good habits, yeah, they fall under self-improvement, and I'm not here to undermine them. But I think in 2026, today's day and age, modern day man, you know, a lot of us have lost the ability to be seen. A lot of us are so sheltered from other people's judgment, right? We don't put ourselves out there. We, we're afraid to express our true opinions. Um, and we also live online. Yeah, we live online. We spend a lot of time watching videos, watching content instead of being out there in the real world. And we've lost that ability to socialize. We've lost the ability to make stuff happen, to just put ourselves on the line. And I just think if we're talking about self-improvement, I think Cold Approach is one of the best self-improvement tools that I've ever discovered, because I'm actually speaking as somebody who tried a lot of different avenues, right? I used to watch Hamza videos back in the day. And if we're talking about, what gave me the ability to improve my confidence and, reclaim my masculinity and go after what I want and be comfortable in my own skin, it wasn't the gym, it wasn't journaling, it wasn't, meditating. It was Cold Approach. Yeah, it was Cold Approach. Cold Approach is what gave me that confidence. So, you know, to me, that was an extremely powerful tool to get to the place I wanted to get to. So that's why I advocate for it. That's why I'm such a staunch believer in the process, in the way that I found it, in the way that I was taught Cold Approach, and so I think it's powerful. Yeah. So yeah. Now I'm trying to think, what else do I want to say about this topic? Um, I mean, I guess ultimately, because I'm just like spitting thoughts now. I didn't really write any notes for this, but if you're still watching, um, I also think a big part of it is, you know, authenticity. So, you know, again, kind of related to the pickup paradigm. If we rewind back to when Day Game and Cold Approach and the PUA guys were, at the top of the let's say space, running the space, they weren't preaching authenticity, right? They were preaching performative action, acting in a certain way, to convince girls to like you, and it was very, let's say, manufactured, and anything manufactured isn't real. So again, one of the reasons why I love Cold Approach and the way that it's being taught nowadays by guys like Christian, Ephraim, and eventually myself, is that when we're not teaching, or people, they weren't teaching routines, they were teaching authenticity, right? It's about trying to get back to who we are at our core and being okay with ourselves, right? And understanding that we can be at peace with ourselves, and women will respond to that, right? Like women who see the real you, they exist, and they'll welcome you with open arms, right? And as somebody who used to question themselves a lot, like a lot, I used to question everything about myself, whether it was physical or internal. Somebody who used to be in that camp, Cold Approach was the ultimate tool to force me to like reckon with that idea, because you can, like, just imagine, like, whoever's watching, just imagine that you're someone who doesn't like feel fully confident in themselves, and that's away from the social spotlight. That's just in private, right? Like, I look at myself in the mirror and I go, yeah, like, there's a few things I like about myself. I'm not a complete bum. Like, I've achieved things, right? But I don't like the way I look, or I feel a little bit insecure about my body, or I haven't really been able to get girls, and people keep asking me how my dating life is going, and it's not going well, but I can't own up to that and tell them the truth, so I feel ashamed about it. I don't feel that confident in myself, and sometimes in social situations, and so, and I'm introverted, so like maybe that's gonna make it even harder. I don't think I'm the coolest, funniest guy. I don't look the greatest. I don't have the coolest style. And so like you're having all these like thoughts, right? I used to have these thoughts. So imagine you're that guy, and then you find cold approach, and then for some crazy reason you have the courage to actually go for it, despite feeling somewhat insecure. And then now you're just on this journey for a year and a half. Like think about think about how insane that is, right? Like that's like, if there's anything like facing your fear direct, there's nothing more direct than that. And part of that fear is you have to put yourself on the line, right? Like my insecure, vulnerable self is now not just feeling uncomfortable in private, but now I have to put that part of me on display for women to reject me in person, rep after rep, right, in front of other people. And so just to try and tie this back into authenticity, I think when I first started, if I look back at my approaches and if I look back at the way I used to go about it, it wasn't terrible, because I was certainly able to find results. I was getting positive encouragement, but I don't think I was being authentic, right? I think I was still putting on some sort of facade. I was essentially trying to approach and talk in a way that I thought the girls would respond well to, rather than in a way that was authentic to me. And this was more clear and adamant when I eventually got dates, because when I started going on dates, I got dates, but the dates weren't really going well. And looking back, I think a big reason was because I wasn't comfortable being myself on these dates. I felt like I had to be extra funny. I felt like I had to sound way more interesting than I was. I had to try and woo the girl by planning this extravagant, cool date, right? And in reality, I was just afraid to just be myself. And to be fair, I think at some level, when you're someone like me, right? Because I consider myself to be, like, I used to be a bit of a people pleaser. I think I still have that tendency, um, to this day, to be fair, but I've certainly shed a lot of those traits. But if as somebody who used to deal with such issues, it's like, you're a people pleaser. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to, you know, be too forthright with your desires because of, again, that fear of being rejected, which is funny because the rejection exists at different levels. So yeah, sure, she might not reject me when I approach her, and she might take me out. She might accept my invitation to a date, but then on the date she might reject me after the date, right? So there's always that fear in the back of your mind. But I guess at the date level, I had the fear that she would reject the authentic version of me, right? Which again was another hurdle I had to overcome. And after going through many dates, I realized, well, something feels off, and what feels off is how I'm showing up, and I'm not being authentic, right? So I decided, screw this. I'm just gonna be as authentic as I can, right? I'm not gonna overthink any of this. I'm not gonna try to approach this date from some sort of a strategic angle where I'm looking at the girl in front of me and thinking, okay, she's this kind of girl, so she probably likes this, and so therefore I can't show her this side of me because she's gonna judge me for it. So I'm gonna hide that part. I was like, no more doing that. No more doing that. Now it's a case of I'm just gonna be myself, and if she likes it, cool, and if she doesn't, it is what it is, and I'll move on. And of course, I had the wonderful, um, let's say, knowledge or comfort of having the skill in the back pocket, right? Because I knew that, okay, even if I'm on this date with this girl and it turns out that we're not as compatible as I thought we were, or she doesn't like me, once she's seen the real me, then I'm okay because I can go out into the streets again and approach again and eventually find somebody who will like me. And of course, that requires some level of faith that there are girls out there that will like Ian for who Ian is. And that, getting over that hump and having that faith and having that belief, that in and of itself was a, let's say, process, a journey, right? Because when I came into cold approach, I think in the back of my mind, did not believe that there were girls out there who would like me for me, just based on previous experiences and just based on the struggles that I had before. So that in and of itself took time to like develop, right? That faith. And so, of course, part of the reason why I probably, well, I think a byproduct of thinking in this way or having this self-limiting belief around my authentic self is what led to me being inauthentic, right? But in a funny 360 way, you don't believe in yourself, you're insecure, so you put on a fake version of yourself, then that fake version of yourself doesn't get results, and then you just revert back to being yourself, right? And so, but the difference is now when I was being myself, having learned Code Approach, I was being myself, but I had the skill to get more girls in the pipeline, which then changes everything, right? Because now it's not a case of, oh, this girl doesn't like me and then I'm cooked because I can't find anybody else. No, it's a case of this girl doesn't like me, but I can wake up tomorrow, go out into the streets, and then find somebody who does. And the moment I found the girls who liked me for me, which is eventually what happened, everything switched, right? And you have that light bulb moment where you're like, oh, shit. So you mean to tell me that attractive girls actually like Ian for who Ian is, the way he presents himself now, the way that he was before? Because, guys, I haven't changed anything about my outward appearance since I started Code Approach. I haven't changed anything, like literally nothing. Yeah, maybe I think I've had like a change in my glasses. I used to wear these other frameless glasses, but that's about it. So really, what has changed? If we really think about it, what's changed? It's like my internal state has changed. The way I view myself has changed. The way I carry myself has changed. The way I walk around has changed. The way I view the world has changed. The way I express myself has completely transformed, right? And so that's what essentially got me from point A to point B. And then through that process, I got to a point where I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm comfortable being myself. I'm comfortable owning who I am. I don't mind talking about the stuff that I'm interested in. I don't mind coming across as weird or coming across as, like whatever word you want to describe me. I mean, I like what I like, right? In terms of my hobbies, my interests, writing, philosophy, spirituality, sports, writing, reading, Code Approach, right? I'm into Code Approach, obviously. Whatever the case might be, right? So instead of shying away, I'm just owning that now. And that's such a liberating feeling, right? And by the way, I'm not perfect. I'm not like this fully enlightened Buddha sat on top of a mountain, cross-legged, completely, completely immune to the judgment of others. Like I still have my fears. I still, to some degree, still care about what people think. That's not ever gone away. It's just way less than it used to be. But I've certainly made huge strides. And yeah, I think at the start of the stream, I spoke about that feeling that I had after that first approach. And I described it as a feeling of aliveness. And I really mean that, I think Code Approach, in a way, it gave me a new lease on life. It made me way more excited for life because I realized that I don't have to succumb to my fears. And if I get over my fears, then there's a whole life ahead of me, right? Oftentimes I'll I'll be with a girl that I met through Code Approach and we're on a date, we're having a good time. One second, I think I just saw a Ferrari. Is that a Ferrari? Oh, that is a Ferrari. Wait, is it? Oh, it is a Ferrari, yeah. Sorry, I just got distracted by Ferrari. It's one of my favorite supercars. Anyway, did somebody steal my Ferrari? What the fuck? Nah, guys, I'm not that rich. Don't worry. I'm not money maxed. But yeah, nah. So what was I saying? Oh, I lost my train of thought, and I was making a good point. Um, yeah, no. So yeah, I know what it was. Apologies, boys. So when sometimes I'll find myself on a date with a gorgeous girl who I really get along with. We're having a good time, and like as she's talking, as she's I don't know recounting some story of hers, I'll just be like, I'll just sort of be sat back in the seat, and I'll look at her and I'll be like, damn, like she's fine and she's cool and we're having a fun time and I'm laughing and we're going back and forth. And I'll think to myself, if I didn't have the courage to go after what I wanted, then I wouldn't be here right now. Which means all of this experience, right? All the fun I'm having, all the joy, the sex, the banter, the girlfriend experience, right? Like right now, I'm seeing somebody in London who I really like, right? And I think she's to be fair, she's coming tomorrow actually, so I'm excited to see her. But you know, all these experiences, when I really absorb them, I work my way back. I reverse engineer the process, and I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't get over my fear. I wouldn't be here if I'd allowed John's opinion or Jeremy's opinion to stop me from expressing my desires, right? I wouldn't be here if I gave up when I had that 3 month rut where I couldn't get any dates, right? I wouldn't be here if I gave up when I went on 2 dates in a row and both girls back to back told me that they didn't see a romantic connection with me in the same week. Two girls that I thought, okay, they're great, I want to take them out for second dates, and it just didn't go anywhere. Twice in a row, same week, same message. I could even drop the text thread if I wanted to, right? I wouldn't be in front of that hot girl right now, girlfriend experience, who's just coming to crash at my crib, if I'd given up after the first few rejections, when I was getting flaked on and ghosted. Yeah, when I first started and I was getting numbers, but I wasn't getting responses, right? And so, like, that's a really powerful frame to view everything because, like I said, most of us are paralyzed by the fear and we don't go after what we want because of the fear. And I think being able to rise above that fear is just, it's kind of like a cheat code for life, because nothing can stop you. And we have one life, and I don't, if we're thinking about what's the point of being here, like why are we here? What's the point? How do we live our lives? What does it mean to live a fulfilling life? What is a meaningful life? That answer is different for everybody, and it's up to you to go on that journey to discover it. But I think a lot of it comes from facing fears, getting over fears, finding out what you want, and then asking yourself, I want this, but why am I afraid to go for it? Like, I want this, but why am I not doing it? Whose opinion is stopping me from doing this? Whether it's a person, a group of people, your community, society, or maybe it's just yourself, right? Maybe it's just that like negative self-critical voice in your head that says you can't do this, you're not worthy of this, this isn't possible for someone like you. But again, imagine if I'd succumbed to that kind of voice, right? Thankfully I didn't. So yeah, I'm glad that I got over that hurdle. And I guess that's the reason why I wanted to lean more into this channel and lean more into creating content around this particular aspect of life, because I truly do believe in the power of the skill, right? I don't believe in the power of getting laid. That's not what I believe in. I don't believe in the power of getting girls. I believe in the power of the process of cold approach, which gets you to that point. Because I've seen it for myself, I've seen it in other people. I can see what that trajectory looks like and the kind of person you become after it. And do I think it can change the world? I don't know if it can change the world, but obviously we live in a modern dating crisis. But all I know is that it changed my world. It changed my whole world view. And it just got me to a place where I loved myself even more, where I rated myself even more. And now when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, I like that guy. Like, I respect that guy. I actually really fuck with that guy in the mirror. And I think a lot of people can't say that, unfortunately. And in a weird way, trying to get girls was my route to that place. I never would have thought that, because I'm sure lots of people will probably come across cold approach content and they'll think, why are these guys caring so much about getting girls? Like, who gives a fuck? It's just pussy. Now obviously 9 times out of 10 those are guys who've never had to go through that, let's say, go through the scarce desert of getting no play whatsoever. So we're not going to focus on them and I get their opinion. Like everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I think for the right kind of guys who get what I'm saying, I think this could be beneficial. So yeah, will it change the world? I don't know, but I think it can change other people's worlds, and yeah, and I think it's worth. I think it's worth embarking on the journey because yeah, it will completely transform who you are if you take it seriously and if you push yourself into these uncomfortable situations. So yeah, that's about it. That's all I wanted to say. I wanted to get a bit deep on this one, and yeah, until next time, boys. But peace out.